Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast of Listening with Eli. I'm your host Elijah Pistana, and with me I have a treat for you guys. I have Sabrina Beguiristain, an FIU student and multimedia content creator and prospective journalist. Sabrina, thank you for coming to the show.
No, thank you so much for having me, Elijah. I'm super excited to talk with you. And yeah,
Just for people to get an idea, I met Sabrina within a sports broadcasting course, and within that, I just wanted to ask Sabrina, what's your passion with sports? Are you something that's into a particular person within soccer or football? Why did you take that class in the first place?
it's kind of funny because I know nothing about sports, Elijah. Absolutely nothing. I took this class seeing it as an opportunity to broadcasting and journalism for myself because I know that journalism is such a broad concept nowadays, especially when there's so much you could do with journalism, like the newsroom, editing, behind the scenes, camera. Like it's such an intense and exciting field for especially creative minds. And so I came into this class thinking, you know what, I know absolutely nothing about sports, but I do know a little bit about broadcasting. And if I could learn more about broadcasting in the sense of with a new subject like sports, I thought, you know what, if I could accomplish sports broadcasting, I can accomplish absolutely anything.
And that's the same thing too. But what I like about within media, you network and you meet cool people. So meeting you was a great opportunity. And now I want to go into your content of the experience in journalism. So we know about nothing about sports, but what brought you into the idea of journalism itself? What wanted you to be able to talk to somebody, hear their story, and send it out to the public?
I loved writing. So when I got out of high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I loved so many things. I wanted to be a veterinarian. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a director. I loved films. I loved music. So it was like, you know what? I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I loved writing. And that is something that I guess, you know what, drew me to journalism because I love using stories and, making people aware of that. So that's why I really got into this field was that I loved writing, and then I thought, you know what, I loved visual communication as well. So taking a story in its written form and transforming it into something that we can see. I loved that. So broadcasting. So that's how I got into it. I was like, I started with something that I really loved, and I took it from there. I definitely took a chance with it because it's like, they just push you right out of high school and they were like, just go pick something. And I'm like, I don't know what to pick. So I picked journalism, and I'm so glad I did because I can't imagine doing any other field than this because I absolutely love the diversity. I love the range it offers for people who really don't want to do something specific for the rest of their lives. That's the great thing about journalism is that you can jump from one thing to the other.
What's crazy is that our actual our boss or head professor Charles Strauss, he was a head reporter and a digital editor for the Miami New Times. He didn't start in journalism. He actually started with a degree in Russian.
I did not know that. First of all, Chuck Strauss is a great professor. He's been so helpful so far. He is I think the director for the South Florida Media Network.
That is correct.
I myself have contributed my own work to the South Florida Media Network, and I did not know that. You see, that's why there's just so much to learn. So many people start off with such different things, and then when you are inspired by maybe a certain story or an issue, people are just drawn to wanting to expose that to people. And I guess that is journalism in a sense.
Yeah, and the willing with of journalism is that you want to be able to tell stories and understand. Like for example, what I saw about within your stories, you write a lot of stuff involving of people giving back to the community. Whether if it's something like within the Miami Project or the Warner House, you found things that affected people within the communities, whether it be through the arts or through charities. Of the stories that you've currently written so far, which is the one that impacted you most? And tell us the creative process on writing and investigating that story.
And no, one of the most impactful stories that I've done, which is the first story I ever written or produced, was the Warner House, and it's a story about a local museum here in Miami that I had no idea about, and a lot of people had no idea about. It's one of the original homes here in Miami, and it was first a flower shop. It was one of the first flower businesses here in Miami, and it held so much history. And so I thought, you know what, I'm gonna do it on this house. And I got there and I met this wonderful historian. Her name is Karen County. And she walked me through the entire house. And she was and seeing her passion of like just how much history that house held and the experiences that, it's a museum, but it's also a community center for the arts and especially for Hispanic artists. So it's a ballet studio as well. And so I thought, you know what, this is, and she was like, she was expressing to me that like nobody knew about it, that like they would have shows and that barely people would show up. And I was like, oh my God, like if I could publish this, because it first started as a class assignment, but I was like, if I could, you know, plead to my professor that like, can you get this podcast on South Florida Media Network so we can expose this? And I promised Karen, never, they always say never say promises in journalism, but I felt so strongly about this story that I was like, like Karen, I'm gonna try my hardest to get this published so that people can be a part of this amazing little mini community. Especially it's especially like an art community. So yeah, and then it got published, and I was so happy. And I guess that's why I'm so drawn to local communities and like our local community here in Miami and the stories here, because they're so diverse and they're full of life, and people I think should know about that.
This reminds me of a story that I was looking at with one of my friends, Monica, within the South Florida Media Network, where we wrote about in Brownsville there is a cemetery where the Lincoln Memorial Cemetery, and it was completely desecrated. Not many people take a look at it because the thing is, it doesn't have any funding. So then we actually went there, me, a photographer, and Monica. We went there, we interviewed the owner, and we understood a lot of things at that point that not many people knew about. So, but just imagine one person owning an entire cemetery that was inherited from her to the person before her to the person before her. And the thing is that she doesn't want to give the rights of the cemetery to the county, who offers to get help. And those are the struggles that you have to deal with as a person. Do you want to be able to advocate and help, or do you want to be neutral and not be able to offer that? So within that, I felt, like I feel you at that point where you want to promise to help, but you can't because all you're doing is a student for a news organization. That's it. And that's why I try to delve away from the concept of journalism itself, because most of it is investigative. Well, that's why I wanted to do more of content creation, of news production, writing advertisements, creating things that can make people engage and understand. And going with that, we already spoke about your passions and your interests, but now tell me more about of your family and what have they imparted to you, and what you like to do in the future.
Yeah, no, I've been very thankful to be part of a family that has let me explore my options. I know a lot of people don't have that support system in their lives, and for someone who's just gotten out of high school and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, and I only knew, listen, I want to do writing, and that's all I really knew. And I was nervous and I felt pressure, but my mom and my dad, and especially my just my entire family, they lended that hand of like, listen, there is no rush to this. This is the rest of your life, and you don't have to have like a set thing. Like you just don't. And so that's what that pressure was immediately like taken off of me, and that allowed me to explore my options and allowed me to say, listen, maybe I like sports broadcasting, or I'm gonna go into advertising, and so I've taken so many classes here at FIU that allowed me to dwell it, dive in that. And so, yeah, and that led me to loving journalism. And so it naturally led me, because I feel like when you're out of high school, you're forced to, and it's not a natural thing of like, oh, there's some people who are, like right out of high school, they know what they want to do, and I applaud them for that. But I was naturally led to journalism, which I love, which I would, yeah.
You know how many people change their majors in Miami-Dade College?
No, I have known several people who have changed their major at FIU like 6 times, and I'm like, you know what, you do you. Like, it's that pressure. It's like that 4-year countdown of like, you have to have something in 4 years, and it's so unrealistic, and it leads people, graduating in a major that they don't love. And so that's why I'm taking my sweet time. I'm like, some of my friends have graduated. I'm taking my sweet time because, yeah, like, and again, like what you said earlier, that journalism is built also with the sense of like you have to have internships and you have to have these opportunities and this portfolio. And so that's why I'm also taking my time, because I want to build that for myself as well, because since there is so many opportunities in journalism. So, yeah.
So if you had an opportunity to work with a particular organization of journalism, which is your background, where would you want to go? Would you want to be in a national organization like, CNN or Fox News, or do you want to be somewhere local, within the Miami Herald, or do you want to go off in the international field? Where do you see yourself in the big world of journalism?
Oh man, that's a hard question. I love local stories, so I'm very drawn to Miami and the stories here, the little stories that I think a lot of people don't know of and aren't aware of. Like we were saying before, like these issues of just people here in Miami and their voices and they're not heard, and especially as student journalists, where professors encourage us to look into those local stories. So I think I definitely see myself for now staying here in Miami because I love this community, and I think there's so much to unpack here, and I would love to, like, I've written like several stories about local people, and I've loved it because it feels very intimate, it feels personal, and what compared to like a really really big story for CNN. So yeah, so far I think that's what I'm. But we'll see, because journalism is like
Wherever a story takes you, as they say.
yeah. So
So, man, Sabrina, are you a dog or are you a cat person?
I'm a both. I have two dogs.
Really? Okay, so tell me about each of them as if they're your kids.
Oh my gosh. I have a younger one. Her name's Maya. She's a rascal. And then Brandy is a little grandma. She's the older one. And they're like precious into my life. I always say to my mom, like, I can't imagine them without me. And she wants to take them away. I'm like, well, because, she's always saying, like, oh, one day you'll move out. And I'm like, no, I refuse. I'm going to take Brandy and Maya. And she's like, no. And I'm like, why?
Are they like corgis? Are they like chihuahuas? What type of dogs are these things?
These are beautiful golden doodles. And
What's a golden doodle?
Elijah, a golden doodle is a mix between a poodle and a golden retriever.
That's possible?
There is so many possibilities in the dogging breeding world. Listen, I don't encourage all of them. I don't support all of them. Let me just say that right now. But golden doodles have been a great breed so far, and I love my doggies with all my heart. I love cats too, so cat community, don't come after me, but I love cats as well.
Okay, that is very interesting. A golden doodle. My lord, that I guess that's amazing. Regardless at that point, you are an amazing storyteller. You take the time to understand the people that you talk with, and you have so much future ahead of you. I thank you for talking with me now, Sabrina. That is Sabrina Beguiristain. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me, and that's everything for listening with Eli. Say bye to everybody, Sabrina.
Bye.
Until next time, everybody. Bye.